We're going to start with the build of the Two Kings Boost by Stewmac. And firstly, we'll leave this bag out of the picture for a bit with all the pots and the output jacks, switches. And we'll look at the bags with the resistors, diodes, capacitors, all that stuff, and count out the capacitors as per this page 5. And I'm going to stick them to a piece of just foam from a packing box. And I'll measure the resistors, and then I'll certainly check the colors as well, but it's almost easier to measure the resistors. The colors are kind of hard to figure out, but you can double check them that way. We'll start the build with the insertion of the diodes, the lugs the pads that we need to kind of solder into are 5/16 apart. So if we bend the diodes legs to about 5/16, you can check it on a ruler. If you need to bring it in any closer, I just kind of push them in a tiny bit. And these are directional, so the two blue lines will be at the top, and they're clearly labeled as to where they go. So we'll start with that, to the blue diodes in this area, two of them clearly labeled on the instruction diagram on the other side. When we place them in through here, with the blue lines going up, we simply just go to the other side and kind of tighten the legs and pull them off to the side a bit, and that will firmly put it in place. When soldering, I have this Keg solder tip cleaner, and it also tins the tip, makes it shiny. Wipe it off on a wet sponge. We'll tighten these up. We'll hold the soldering iron there for 4 or 5 seconds. Place the solder onto the joint. And there we have it. Let's do this one. Onward. And there they are. Don't blow on the solder, let them cool by himself, and they're basically cool now. And then we'll cut these legs real short, cut them basically right off. We don't want them in the way of anything else, and I guess they act as antennas if we did leave them. So we want them cut basically, right down to the board basically. So that's the next step we take. Now the 8 diodes with the black band will go in, and again clearly labeled on the circuit board as to which direction they go in. The picture looks exactly the same as the diode. Again, just a matter of bending the legs, getting the right direction for the diode. Again, the black bands up in the air, or again, exactly like the diagram. Now the black diodes, as you can see, this one here, the negative gray strip is at the bottom. This one here clearly labeled again with it being on the top. And then this next diode with it, the negative on the bottom, or the gray strip on the bottom. Again, we will move the lugs off to the side so we can solder it that way. So all of these, the two blues here, and then the blacks are at the top, the blacks are at the top, the two blues. And then this one here, the gray strip is on the bottom, and then the gray strip at the top, gray strip at the bottom. And we will solder that. These have slightly bigger legs, so I just increased the heat of the soldering iron to 400 Celsius there from, I don't know what I had it at, 390 I think, but just a touch more, I guess, just to increase the heat a bit. But your solder joint should be nice and shiny. And there are all the diodes. Next we'll install the resistors. I've set this to 60K on the ohm side. So if we, for instance, find a resistor like this one, we'll check it and it'll say 27.12. So that's a 27K ohm resistor. And the 27K ohm, let's go back to this first page. We'll see that it's a red, violet, black, red, brown color code. And so you can kind of double check it there, but the colors are so hard to see. It's so much easier just to, you know, place your ohm meter on it, 27.13. So I've checked them that way. The ones that won't check on the 60, for instance, like this 220, you'll have to move it to 600K, and you'll see it quickly checks to 220.3. So that's a 220K ohm resistor. Here we are. And then I've just put them on this piece of foam, label the foam along the way, and then I'll take them from there and install them. So it's a quick, easy way to kind of see your components, is just stick them through a piece of foam. These resistors are not polarized, so you can put them in whatever direction you want. I'll follow the schematic with the brown, black, black, red, brown. And if you follow that 10K in the blue line here, and the other one goes here, and I'll do brown, black, black, red, brown. That way, and it doesn't matter, you can have them reverse it, but to double check your work, it might be easier if you keep it in the same direction as the diagram shows. So that's what we'll do with those. So those are the first two 10K ohm resistors. The 4.7K ohm resistor, on the little chart here, it'll say 4K7. That's kind of their way to indicate it's a 4.7K. So stick the 4.7K in the 4K7 slot as per the diagram. But that just helps you confirm what you're doing there. And again, we've got the yellow, violet, black, brown, brown in that direction. Yellow, violet, black, brown, brown. So here in the resistors, there's an option for either a 1K ohm resistor, which is the stock Analogman setup, or a 100K ohm resistor. For higher gain, it says install two 100K ohm resistors, one being way over here and the other in this direction over here. So there's a clear let's see here, yeah, there's a clear printing right there of 1K ohm / 100K. So I'm going to use the typical Analogman 1K resistor, the brown, black, brown, brown. To measure your 6 1M resistors, or 1000K ohm resistors, we have to set this dial to 6M, and then you'll see that some will measure 996, which is basically close to 1000, or 1M, or 1000K, depending how you look at it. Here, that one measures a little, well, no, a little under, I guess. But they're all in the zone. Yeah, that one measures a little bit more, so that's a 1M, almost exactly. So that's where we measure those. So we've got the two internal trim pots, and we will solder those in. There's a clear, triangular diagram there that will align everything. And it says on here that it's just to adjust the high end. How does it say that? This control label presence and impact the higher harmonics. Useful when the player wants to take a bit of the sharp edge off the overall tone without dramatically changing the overall character, much like the presence control of a guitar amp. Turn it to the right for more high end and to the left to remove high end. So clockwise for more high end, counterclockwise for removing some high end. So we'll solder those into place now. Next we install the dip switches. Hopefully that'll align up well. There we are. Let me use this to push them down maybe. That worked. And so certainly we can always check back to page 37, and there's an image there of basically how everything looks. And on page 38 we have this little diagram here that tells us that basically the analog factory setting, the switch 1 would be on. So basically dip switch 1 on should give us that Analogman setting, if I understand that correctly. That would be their factory setting, but then depending on how you set it, it can give you more distortion, more overdrive, or a clean boost. Where those connectors aren't that long, I'm just gonna put some tape here and see about holding it that way. Just put some solder on. One of the resistors in this circuit was not available. There was only 3 6.8 k ohm resistors that were sent instead of 4. I found some in my basement that I use for coil split circuits, but they're just physically too big. They just quite won't fit. So Stewmac wrote back right away, and they're actually sending one immediately. Next we're going to install these integrated circuit sockets into the PC board. There's a U-shaped cutout on one end, whether you can see it there on the white at all, but each side has like a U-shaped cutout where on the back side there isn't, and that is clearly labeled also on the diagram as well. If you happen to put these on backwards, don't worry about it, because to unsolder the 8 lugs would be a lot of work. Just make sure that the pieces on top go in their proper direction. but if you can, pay attention to where these are going and put them in the right spot. So that one has the little U on the top, this one has the U on the top, and this one will have that little U to the right. So I've held all of those on with a little bit of tape for now, and we'll solder them in. This tape was longer than I thought. We'll solder those in. Now that those are installed, we'll install the chips by snapping them in. Circle on the same side as that U-shaped cutout. Careful when installing them. Again, something like this can prove handy. And there's one. Again, circle, little circle side up, and so both of these on each end are the 45 ADD with both circles on the up side. And there we have installed those. The third one in the circuit has a half round section to it rather than a dot as shown in the diagram, but that half round section must go to the right. And as long as these ones on top are in the proper direction, if you happen to solder the bottom ones wrong, well, as long as you've got this dot and that dot facing up and this half round cut out to the right, you're laughing. With the voltmeter, digital multimeter on the MF setting, microfarad setting, we're going to be checking the capacitors, these electrolytic capacitors. 957. 946. So those readings are basically 1 microfarad, and there is a negative side to the capacitor, and it's also the one with the shorter lead. So, and also on the board, as you will see, there is a label for positive, and it's the square on the board itself. You'll see there's a label for positive, and it's the square pad. So the 1 microfarad, those 2 red ones we have, and the positive square one. So again, the long lead is the positive. On the side of the capacitor, the electrolytic capacitor itself, as I said, there will be a sign indicating negative. So long lead through the square hole indicating positive. So for both of these red ones, it appears like we have the negative facing left and the negative facing right on each of those. Again, you can kind of double check on the back side here by seeing that the longer lead is against the square. There we are. The square pad, and the shorter lead is on the round pad. Again, that's the longer lead, that's the square pad. That's the shorter one, and that's the round pad. Important that these are in the right direction. Next capacitor, electrolytic capacitor we're going to mess with here should be reading in a second. Sometimes it takes a minute for this to come on. 101.2 microfarads, so that's the 100 microfarad capacitor. And again, the longer lead in the square, shorter lead in the circle. And this is where this should be. Again, with the negative facing down. These next three electrolytic capacitors measure in the 10.3 range. And again over here. And recheck your diagrams, but you should be all correct if you follow those ideas of long is in the positive hole or the square hole. And then the negative side is also showing a gray strip on these. Let's see if I can pull that one a little further in. Have them sitting by each other a little more firmly there. And let's see about soldering this. I've soldered all the positive sides just to see if I need to haul on anything a bit more to make them seem snug. That should be good. I'm installing some of the 10 nanofarad caps. They're not polarized, but they say it's best to have the names kind of all in the same direction, so I've got the names facing me here now. But this 100 picofarad cap, I put the name facing that way because if I faced it the same way, we couldn't read it. So in this case, we'll put it forward too so we can read it. These are kind of tight space, but it all works out. And we'll bend the legs on the back side and we'll solder that one in. After I solder this one in, I'll continue with the 10 microfarad ones. I think there were 8 in all of those ones, so we'll get all of those 8 done with. So for the 10 nanofarad ones, the 8 capacitors, we follow the black line, and appears to be one labeled 10 here. Sometimes these tools can help in kind of crimping those a bit. Where they're short, it's hard for your hands to crimp them. Follow the black line again. Maybe even some tweezers would have been handy for positioning that. Appears like one will go here, we'll put the wording facing the trim pot here. And it appears like I can't go too deep on this one, but I'm in because that one and these electrolytic capacitors, especially this big one up top here, which would be a 100 microfarad one, keeps it from going as deep as I would but want it to. But let's see if we can kind of bend it in there. And I think that'll be fine. It's just up a bit. I'm installing the 22 nanofarad ones. One will go here, and again we'll use this to just bend the legs. Actually, I don't want to bend it too close to that other connection, but that'll hold it in place while I find the blue line that takes us way over here to this other 22 nanofarad. So just let me get those in there. These next ones in the book are 0.1 microfarad, but they measure 104 nanofarad, and on here it does say 100 nanofarad. So two of those have that designation. That one fits perfectly there. So we'll fold the legs so we get it staying. And then the other one, 100 nano, or as the book says, 0.1 micro. I'll turn it around so the writing, again these are not polarized, but so the writing is in the same direction. And this 1 microfarad cup is rather large. This finds its way over here. It looks like there's space galore for it, so that's good. Again, we'll turn this over. This handy contraption by Stewmac is great for holding these boards in place and just turning them around and working with them. Again, I got the writing in the same direction. And the second 1 microfarad capacitor will go over at this end. And other than the capacitor that I didn't receive, or the resistor that I didn't receive, that appears to be all for the diodes and the resistors and capacitors. I believe all the rest either belongs to pots or wires. We'll see as we go, I guess. These 3 in a row ones are usually pots, and those would all be wires, I'm assuming. So let's see what the next page brings. Page number 24 appears to be all wire cutting. So we'll cut the wire to the lengths required, and we'll see about soldering that. The next step will be to cut 6 sections of 2-inch wire from that wire and 9 sections of 1-inch. And then we'll put it into the 22 gauge stripper and strip about 3 30-seconds of an inch on each side. And I'll continue with that. We'll now attach the wires. So I've got a little bit of orange tape here, kind of holding them in place, and then we'll just attach. I've got one of those soldered in already, and I'll just use a clamp to hold the others as I go. And just like that, I can get them all. This one here, I let it kind of heat up a bit too much, so I'll put, because it's soldered in well, I'm not going to bother messing with it, but because I see a little bit of wire there, I'll just put some heat shrink tubing on it, and we'll go on from here. And we'll hold them that way. In fact, what would make this even easier if this was a wire with a Teflon coating. It's not often that I'll melt them, but in that case, I guess, in not having secured it well, I managed to melt it a little bit. But the rest will hold well. Shouldn't melt any of the red coating. And these are coming along just fine. Put a little bit of heat shrink tubing down this one. And we'll heat it up and shrink it onto there. The instruction shows you kind of taping those 9 wires to the breakout board. So what I did was just take this piece of foam I had. I guess it kind of fit perfectly there to allow the wires to be the length they are. This is the downside, so as I fold it back, it'll be soldered all in the direction according to the instructions. So I'll show you kind of what that's all about. So those 4 are done, the rest should be easy. I guess one should kind of look at making sure that they're perfectly all the same length. Mine are slightly off, but not off enough to give an issue. But I think if they were all perfectly the same length, it would be just that much easier. Again, I'll show you this side down, but yeah, we had it that component side up, and now as we turn it this way, that's basically how they wanted us to have it. So that's just another way of going about it that might be slightly different than trying to tape it all. Yeah, and I'll take care of these slightly longer ones. And we'll go from there. Now we're going to mess with the pots. These have an indexing pin where we just need to take needle nose pliers, grab at them, and just break it off. We're now going to loosely attach the stomp switches. We'll put one nut on the switch. That'll make it not protrude so far out. We'll put the lock washer on next. We'll send it on through. We'll put the flat washer on top of that, and then the 14mm nut onto it at this point. And I'll use the 14 mil nut to tighten it. Not so tight, but just enough it won't go anywhere. It's a bit of a suggestion here for any pots that do not have a plastic cap attached, adhesive foam tape. I assume this is it here, to insulate the back of the pots from the soldered leads of other parts on the PCB. So it appears like in these diagrams that I mean, there's 6 pots and there's only 4 little squares here. And it appears like in some of these diagrams that the ones for volume and drive seem to have them. According to there too, the ones for volume and drive. But later on, it appears like in this diagram, it seems like it's just the drive and possibly the tone ones. We don't know what's under there. I wish they would have just gave 6 of them. We could have just slapped them on and that would have been it. But I guess it's just to make sure that no connections short out on here. The 2 drive pots are labeled A. You can see from this top side it should say A100K. So follow the diagram. The volume appears to be the ones with B100K and the tone with the B25K. Now we'll follow the diagram as to where these go. The drive one labeled A100 will go here, and then the volume, and then the drive and the volume. This is actually a volume spot, but the drive one has to go there because as we reverse this, the drive will actually go here, which is exactly where we want the drive. So what we're doing now is taking a 10 mil socket, removing the nut and washer, placing this on the top. Again, this one's the B100K. And as we reverse it all later, it'll be in its perfect spot. And then we don't want to tighten these too much because they're not permanently in here. So we just want to, lightly put them in there. A100 find its way here. And no sense having it tight. And then this should be a B100. And then the 25 K ohm pots will go for tone and washer, 10 mil nut. And there we have it. And we'll go on with the other 2. In laying the PC board over where it should be, you can see that maybe these 2 are the ones more prone to want to have these pieces of foam. I'll put them there. I've got some foam tape in the basement anyway if I need them on all 6. I'm not sure that I fully understand this part, but what's it gonna hurt? Just kind of protecting it from shorts, even though I do feel there is a distance between those and these. But let's lay it out anyway. And these temporarily attaching the pots and the foot switch to the pedal housing will help keep things steady for soldering the PC board. So that's the reason for that. And as I see what I'm doing here now, I'm realizing there's no way I can then solder that 6.8 resistor. So this is as far as I can go at this point. I don't know if you can see it here or not. Certainly can see where those little foam squares will come in handy on those pots here. And so as we will squish that down, solder it in place, which I'll do when I get my resistor, it appears like I have about an inch from, you know, the top of the casing to its tallest electrolytic capacitor. And so with the bottom kind of slightly recessed by 1/16 of an inch or so, we have about an inch and an eighth or so in there. So I think that'll work out fine and give an eighth of an inch of free space. Stewmac got back to me in a week, within a week, with the 6.8 K ohm resistor. So the very last one that was missing will go in right now. Now we're going to try to line up all the pots. And I could use a tool like this to influence these. Those are all going in well. Pull this way, and all are in. So we're just going to solder all the pots at this point. Next step, step 13 on page 28, is to just put the switches like we did the pots on the reverse, and we use the housing as a holder, and then we push them in, make sure they're flat, and we'll solder them in that way. The next step is to just put the battery clip wires through this little hole on the left. And a suggestion they have is to tie a little knot. There we are. Tie a little knot on this side so that when the battery is changed, there won't be any tugging on the lead wires. I'm not sure that that's super important for me, as I'm just going to be having it on a pedal board anyway, but certainly a suggestion. And then we'll just tack that on to one of these middle pots for now. And that's our battery clip wire for now. The next step is to place these holders for the LEDs, and they go in through the outside. The lock washer will go next, and then the nut. And then there are these tiny plastic pieces that when the red LED goes on this side, the short lead, the negative lead, will be closest to the edge of the casing. So we will put that on, and I guess just kind of goes on like that. With the shorter negative lead being closer to the edge of the casing. The same deal will happen with the white LED, where the shorter lead will be at the edge of the casing, or towards the edge of the casing. I believe this little piece of plastic, there's no, doesn't matter which direction it goes in, as long as you can line it up. And from reviews online, this was one of the more difficult things, was to line this up later on. So we'll see how difficult or annoying this may be, but so far so good. And so the red falls on this side and the white on that side. So the next step is to bring this down where all pots will be hopefully lined up with the holes. But the more difficult part, I think, will be to get the positive lead through the round A and the negative lead through the square K on each side. So, and then lining up everything else at some point. So let's see how easy or difficult that may be. Yeah, it looks like lining. I'm going to have to take these off, which I forgot about. But I've got them all off on the pots. Although the lock washers will have to be on. But can I push that a little closer? And then that may help. Okay. There. I've got the positive lined up on this one. Could I get the negative one so easily? Yep. And on this side, without really taking that side away, I can use this to more effectively position it. The A will be the first one to be had. And it appears like I'm not. There, the A is through. And pushing with this, I have to just determine how close I am. It looks like I'm close. But it's all, oh, and again this worked. So it didn't take as long as I thought, because certainly that was the part that was said to be terrible on this build. So where those are in, I guess I'll try to now push these switches in. And the lock washers are pretty much lined up there. So now, matter of pushing the pots in. Just going to look from overhead. Those seem to be okay. And those seem to be okay. Just this one left, it appears. So that's all going in. There. That one's in good. This appears to be the only troublemaker, but now it's... Oh, no, that one's not in. There we are. So let me maybe start by attaching the flip switches, and hopefully nothing will come out if something is at least lightly attached. These are 14 mil. That's firmly attached. I was just going to attach it, but we've got them pretty good there now. And I'll attach all the pots, and then I'll look at soldering those. Looks like a slightly tight fit there around the PC board, but with that pointy tip soldering iron, I should be able to get it done. And again, the two short leads are along the side of the casing, and the long leads are through the A, so that seems all good. Noticing the lights aren't perfectly centered, so I'll try to center them before I solder anything. Probably won't matter, but that should be good. And we'll turn these all counterclockwise to then attach the knobs. Now we'll solder the LED wires. Again, kind of cramped corners here, but anything's doable as long as we don't have the iron on anything you're not supposed to. And those two seem good. And let's hope I can do the same with this one. That seemed good. So all four of those are done with. Now how will I effectively clip at those? That seems pretty good. There it is. Luckily this is reaching in good. Make sure I find them all so that they don't short anything out. And now we'll turn all these counterclockwise like I did. The idea is to take a small screwdriver in this case rather than an Allen wrench that some require, and set these, open it up a bit, set these at 7 o'clock and tighten them up in that range so that when we turn it up we would essentially have it in a similar position. Maybe I'll move it a tiny bit. There. So that'll be the range that goes in, and we'll set all the others in the same spot. It appears like I should do this one first. And yeah, I'm in the right zone there. Maybe I'll just turn it this way, or even this way, to fully tighten it snugly. This one works very well for that. A little bit more leveraging than this type. And back on with this one. We're going to be installing the step 17, the DC jack, a 9-volt jack, and appears to just be a washer, so here we go. We don't want it too tight right away. We'll kind of line it up like the diagram just for now. Where's my foot? And these two here would go to one jack, and this one will go to the other jack. But here, these two in the middle will go to this, and one of the battery clips, the red battery clip, will go to this center 9-volt adapter plug. So it appears like here, following the diagram, the two middle wires, the one to the right, will go to the bigger clip, the one indicated as negative, and it's a bigger clip here, so fairly easy to follow that one. Turn the wire a bit more. That might hold. Maybe I'll just twist it from the back side and help it hold some more. I'll put that wire out of the way. Maybe I can approach it from this side. And that's attaching to the negative larger post. then goes on to tell us that this positive post or positive wire will go to the post to the left, matter of trying to twist the wire so it stays there, so when we solder we won't have any problems at all. Touch more. Yeah, that seems good. And then of the battery wires, the red one, we'll make it come up right through the middle. The red one will go at the top post on this 9-volt plug or jack. Next up we have the input jack, and we'll be installing this ground wire, labeled ground on the PC board, to what would be the sleeve, and then this lead wire here to what would be the tip, and the tip corresponds all the way with this lug here. Later on we'll also take the black wire from the battery clip and attach it to this lug here, which corresponds to this ring attachment over here. So tip, ring, and then sleeve. So negative to the sleeve, positive will go to the tip, and then this black one will go to the ring. So let's get started. This will be the tip. And then we'll move the casing a bit so I can find that ring. And we'll solder in the ring. So here, as we plug in our jack, it'll just push this way, push that way a bit. It should not hit that. This will not hit anything. Maybe I'll bend that lug a tiny bit so it doesn't go to the top of the casing. And yeah, clears it good. That should be a good position for that one. And nothing should interfere with grounding out on these pots. I'll see if the same happens here. I'm sure it will. So the rubber or the foam pads were essential for those two tone pots, but I think they'll be fine without any of them on these. We have just finished step 18 for this build. We'll skip through 19 and 20 for this one and go right to 21, and that will be the output jack. And again, on the PC board, one is labeled ground, and that'll attach to the sleeve. And then the other one which is labeled out, will attach to the tip. So simple as that. Again, the tip would be this one here, which when you follow along where it's attached will come out to this part, and then the sleeve clearly attaches to the sleeve of the plug, with this sleeve of the jack, I guess, attaches to the plug. So we will go on and solder those two connections. That looks good. And that completes that. We'll tighten it up, make sure that we're in a location where when we plug the plug, we will not ground out onto anything. So I'll just attach it basically right there, 1/2 inch nut. Let's try that again. And so yeah, that should ground out onto nothing. So that basically completes the build. As far as the trim pots, it says that turning it all the way to the left is the default setting, and then turning it to the right to your taste, to your liking, will adjust the high frequency. So to adjust the high frequency shaping to your liking, turn the screw to the right and set to your personal taste. So I'll leave it to the left for now, and we'll see how it sounds. And then underneath on that page 38, there's also the factory analog man setting. It would be the dip switch up, but you can do the overdrive and distortion settings depending what you may like. So there are also ways to change it up, I guess, with the dip switch and of course the high frequencies of the trim pots, each according to each side of the pedal. So that basically finishes it off. I'll put on the back and we'll take it for a test drive, and then I'll adjust those trim pots at some point.